I first learned about Barnabas Ministries, it's probably close to 15 years ago. I was part of a weekend retreat ministry, and one of the speakers on that retreat was from Barnabas Ministries. That's the first time I've ever heard the word, ever heard the title, ever heard the name. And since then, I met with our executive director several times because I was really searching for what God wanted me to do. And I didn't know, and she really helped me walk through that process when she asked me, "What are you passionate about?" And I had no answer. And God helped me develop that answer to her, and she said, "Hey, you want to come work with Barnabas?" And I said, "Yes." And briefly, my parents thought I was crazy, and then we were good. And I've been here for 13 years. I don't think my role as assistant has changed much since the beginning. When I started with Barnabas, there were 4 of us on staff. In that time frame, lots of things have changed, and now we have 13 people on staff. And my heart and my desire is to reach the kids and to make sure that Barnabas stays on track with biblical truth, and to make sure that we can reach the kids with integrity and with honesty and just love them the way God would love them. And I get to assist in doing that, and I get to assist people who God has gifted to do different things. Like, for instance, we have a basketball team, and I don't play basketball. As a matter of fact, I'm bad at it, but I get to assist somebody who is really good at that, and to be able to find, other ways to really reach those kids where I personally am not gifted in those areas, but we can equip people that are. And I also get to do a lot of the ministry, where I get to do the Bible study at one of the detention centers. I get to run the girls group. I get to work directly with juvenile court with a lot of things. I get to do some mentoring. I get to work with the homeless youth. I get to do a lot of the ministry, as well as finding people who are gifted and really supporting them in that. Actually, I get to describe the mission and vision and heartbeat of Barnabas, all 3 of those things, on a consistent basis, because I get to go to all the churches and stand up in front and give those things. And so the thing that I say, that the heartbeat of Barnabas is to find those kids that somebody somewhere has said there's no hope for them, and tell them that there is really hope in Jesus Christ. And we do that through lots of different ways. And to show them that God really has a plan for them and really loves them and really seeks to find them. God is using Barnabas to evangelize by putting us in places that other people can't go. We have the opportunity to be in places that are dark and very hopeless for the kids. We have the opportunity to be in places that, in relationships with people, where we can find the kids that seem to be completely lost from all the other kids, and actually just sit down and say, "Did you know that God loves you?" I'll never forget one of the Bible studies a long time ago in juvenile detention when I was there, and we were just talking about songs, and this big, huge gangbanger kid, he was enormous, started going, "Do you know Jesus loves me?" And I said, "I do." And so we sang it. And he was awful. And that was okay, because it didn't matter, because it was great. And to be able to have those moments, really open the Bible with the kids, really talk about what God has for them, really tell them the truth of the gospel instead of what they hear on the internet or Facebook or anywhere else. The Lord is using Barnabas to make disciples by, once we get in with the kids, we get to stay with them through the mentoring relationships that we have, through some of the group programs that we're doing with recovery groups and girls group and some of the basketball stuff, being able to walk alongside them in those situations and use those moments as teachable moments. With the homeless youth that we're seeing, we're really trying to teach them life skills, but that life skills are really what God says is life skills, and being able to walk them through true biblical how to live life, what God says and how to do it right. And I think that is new to them, and it is also very powerful for them. We have lots of programs in place. We have everything from one-on-one mentoring, where we are very specific in finding those mentors that love Jesus and that want to bring that love of Jesus to these kids, and training them and equipping them to be ready for the very difficult kids that we're getting, because they just have unfortunately lived a whole lot of hard things in life very quickly and very soon. And be able to equip those mentors to be able to walk alongside those kids. We have a girls group program that is in partnership with juvenile court, which is fabulous. First of all, they let us help with that. And second of all, that 3 times a year we get to meet with 20 to 25 girls. And we bring in 20 to 25 mentors at the same time. And we really want to build relationships between the girls and the mentors, not with the girls and each other, because we don't need that, but we do need the other between the girls and the mentors. And just to teach them things, one of the things one of the girls said is, we talk about things here that I've never talked about anywhere. We're talking about honesty, and we're talking about character, and we're talking about respect, and we're talking about you don't have to have sex, and we're talking about all of those things. We're talking about drugs, we're talking about how to use the internet, things that probably they should learn at home, but they're not. And she said it's also safe. I know that what I talk about here is okay. And we can see the transition with the girls from when they come in angry to when they walk out being far more peaceful than when they walked in. We have a basketball program which grew from 1 basketball team to 7 overnight, like literally overnight. Basically, we found out that a lot of the kids were good at basketball. Well, they thought they were good at basketball. And so we brought some amazing people around them and that really were good at basketball to coach them. We connected with some of the alternative schools in the area, some of the youth centers in the area, some other churches and some other ministries, and put together a county-wide basketball league for these kids that can't play on their school teams for whatever reason. Sometimes it's the bad reputation, sometimes they've not good enough grades, and we try to teach them stuff through that, life skills stuff, respect, honor. We call it the Lakeshore Honors League because of the honor piece. And we also have the opportunity to really work with some of the referees in the area that can come in, and we have one referee actually this year that said, you know, I'm not going to referee for anybody else, I'm going to referee for you because what you do is right with those kids. And that's awesome, and these kids get a chance to actually be successful at something, and we make sure they're going to school, and we make sure that they're passing their classes. We give them a little incentive in that, and it's fantastic to watch some changes take place. We try and find resources for homeless youth. At this point, we are still working on building the Barnabas house, and I can't tell you how many times on the phone I said, if we had the house, we could fix that problem right now. But we will have that house soon, and until then, we've got to get creative and figure something else out. Had that conversation with a counselor at school today, saying if I had a place, this is what I would do, but because I don't, this is our best option, and I know it's not fantastic. For an 18-year-old young man whose mom died, and he has burned bridges with other family members for many different reasons, and all of a sudden he's going, oh no, what am I going to do? And needs help. I'm trying to figure that out for him. One of the more recent calls we got was a church called and said, hey, we ran into this girl. We were going to bring her in because we need help. We don't know what's going on. And I asked her, I said, how did we end up like this? How did we end up living on the street for the last year and a half? What's going on? And her story began with, when I was 14 years old, my dad sold me to another family, and I had to marry the then 17-year-old young man. And I lived with them, and I kept running away, and every time I'd run away, I'd come home, and my dad said, no, I sold you. And then she continued to talk, and talked about some abuse, some sexual abuse, and some physical abuse in her past, and then talked about how she has 3 kids that live with their dad, and she's lived on the street. And then she talked about the other teenagers that are living on the street with her right now, and how she feels like she's their mom and has to take care of them. And so she refused help from us so she could go back and live and figure that out. And I said, would you be willing to allow us to kind of come alongside and help them as well? And she goes, well, maybe. So hopefully, sometime in the near future, we can kind of find where they eat lunch. Because I know she actually told us, which was nice, and we can go and sit and talk with them. But we're getting that wide range of calls about kids that need shelter for different reasons, and just trying to work through those things. We have a pen pal program, which honestly started because I was at the juvenile detention, and one of the staff persons there said to me, you know, this kid over here, he's not getting any letters because he just really has no family. So do you know somebody who could write to him and I am the worst letter writer known to man. Though my grandmother tried to teach me to write, I cannot do that. So I started calling up people, and it has turned into something that we're the only ones that do it locally and in the state, and we get calls from the other side of the state from facilities saying, hey, we've got kids, can you send letters to them? And we have an amazing army of volunteers that just writes letters every week, regardless of if they get a letter back. And it is a beautiful thing. And I've seen the kids get them, and they keep them, and they put them up in their rooms, and it's like gold to them. The pen pals are just taught to say, you know what, just write out what God tells you to write. And so you'll find yourself kind of writing about, I was reading the Bible this week. And the kids are being discipled that way too. We have some teen recovery groups. There are support groups for kids that are really struggling through drug and alcohol use with themselves sometimes and with their families sometimes, and really bringing the truth to them in ways of people telling their story about how they have successfully come through that struggle, and trying to walk alongside these kids and do that. It's a great thing. We meet every week. We have an hour. Some of those kids have to be there, and some of those kids don't, and it's really cool to watch God kind of take hold of their hearts. We also have a family mediation program that is not counseling, but it is a way to bring the parents and the kids together and say, okay, what's going on, and figure out what's happening, and trying to problem solve and do some crisis intervention so that we can find the right resources for them. Really the partnerships that we have in the community with the other evangelical Christian ministries that are around, and just kind of try and find those needs and meet those needs so we don't have to be everything. We have a horse program, which is great. It's a way that we can use the horses to really teach the kids. We teach full horsemanship. Our coordinator for that program, it is her farm, it is her houses, her horses, and she has an amazing gift to be able to see a need that a kid has, see how the horse works, and teach them right now. And I think it is the most fun to get text messages from Tammy that says, hey, so-and-so received Christ today, while they were sitting on the horse. Because that's how it happens. Sometimes they just need that person to talk to, but there is nobody. But that horse is fantastic. People can get involved by praying, by giving financially, and by giving of their time and volunteering. Praying, obviously, this is so important. I have been going to Juvenile Detention Center and doing a Bible study for 13 years. And I'm going to tell you something, I know when people are praying and I know when they're not. And I think it is vital to have people praying in those times. And so to pray for the kids that we're working with, to pray for our staff, and to pray for our volunteers is critical, important, and I can't tell people enough you have to pray for what we're doing, because that is how God works and that is how stuff changes. Financially, we are a missions organization. We operate by people giving financially themselves, fundraisers that we're doing, businesses that choose to give, and churches that choose to give. And I'm going to tell you that the majority of it is that individuals that catch the vision and choose to give themselves. We strive very much to take care of that money and take care of that money well, with great accounting practices, and to make sure that we're on track with what we're doing, to make sure that we're using those resources to reach those kids for Christ. And it is impossible to do anything that we're doing without it. You know, it's hard to ask for money, but at the same time, money is necessary to accomplish the task that God has put before us. To be able to say, you know what, let me buy you some Coke and we'll sit down and we'll talk about this. Or you don't have any shoes? How about if I buy you some shoes and we can fix that problem for you right now? All over the place that we can be able to accomplish those things. And volunteering, we have office volunteer needs. People can come in and serve just by stuffing envelopes, everywhere from doing that to vacuuming, to letter writing, to being a mentor, to being part of any of these group things that we have, to being somebody who can come and share their story. There are so many ways people can volunteer. They can go out and work on the horse farm, which apparently we had a bunch of junior hires do the other day, which was fabulous. But they can do so many different things to be able to affect, and every piece of that matters. Because I remember 13 years ago sitting in front of my TV doing the mailing. It is too big for me to do that anymore. And if we didn't have people to come in and do that, that means that a kid doesn't get the help that they need, because we have to stop and do that. So every piece of that counts. Calvary House is a house that we're doing a partnership with one of the local churches right now for young ladies, because we don't have two houses, we have one. And we all know that girls ask for help more often than guys do. That's how it goes. So right now it is for young ladies, and it's for young ladies who are 18, 19 years old and who are probably still in school most of the time or still need some kind of schooling or some kind of help. These kids also do not have a place to be. For instance, right now we have two girls in there. One of them, her parents had to move to Detroit for a job, and the other one, her parents are homeless as well. And so we're coming alongside these two young ladies and we're saying, we want to teach you how to live on your own so that you can get your own apartment, so that you can find that success. We want to help you graduate from school. We want to help you find jobs. We want to teach you how to budget. We're going out today and taking the young lady who has been working and stuffing all of her money into a sock to the bank and teaching her how to do those things. And these kids just need that place that's safe, where they can come back to and they can mess up and return. And it's been cool to kind of watch that happen. We also have another young lady that we're working with who has a 4-year-old son. We've known her for years. And she just needs help getting on her feet right now because she has a record from when she was really little that is kind of chasing her around, and she can't get very far. So there's many reasons that the kids need that and want that support, and we can provide that with our staff person that lives there on site and with other volunteers and with other staff people that come alongside them and teach them life skills that they need. I do what I do for a couple reasons. The first one is because these are the most important kids that I've ever met. If it is true, I tell the kids this all the time, if it is true that Satan goes after those things that are very valuable to God, they must be very valuable to God, because Satan spends a whole lot of time chasing them down. And I know that if and when they choose to follow Christ fully as Lord of their lives, they will affect their community and their world dramatically, because they have a certain tenacity and a certain heart that nobody else has, that you can only get through the kind of suffering that they've experienced. And so I tell them they've got to be super important for that. The other reason is because God told me to, and I love them. And I can't explain that. I just do. And I want to be available to them, to help them, to see them be what God has for them to be. I can give you some numbers of kids that we have looked at. Finding homeless kids is a hard thing. My first experience with homeless kids is I was living in an apartment locally. There was a house next door to mine, and it was vacant briefly. And that vacancy was because it was a rental. And all of a sudden there were like 5 teenagers and 2 strollers over there, and I don't know what was going on. And these kids egged my car, which was awesome. I went over and talked to them and found out that they were kind of going from vacant place to vacant place to vacant place, trying to find a place to stay. And what you learn really fast is that they are hard to count. People always want to know when they give, well, how many kids are you going to help? The house that we're building has 13 beds in it. We have plans for other pieces on that property that would be for more specific populations, like older, independent living kind of things, or pregnant teens, or those kinds of things on the property. But what we know by 2 surveys, one that went straight to the kids locally and asked them, how many of you experienced homelessness in the last year? 113 of them said, I have. And the other one was basically trying to get that same thing, but through those people who are assigned in the schools to look at the homeless kids. So these are kids that show up at school, have asked for help, and they, last year in the school year, found 127 kids that were homeless. If we were to help them all at once, the 13 beds isn't going to do it. So we know that what God has called us to do is the right thing to do. And I hate telling people that I can't do anything right now. And I think the best was a young man. He asked me, "So what do you do anyway?" And I was explaining, and he said, "I need that. Can I help build it so that I'll know to be there for somebody else?" When I think of Lori Jo, I think of grace. I think of perseverance. I think of somebody who loves God with everything that she has. I think of a steadiness. I think of someone who wants people to experience a transformation that she has. And I think of truth and an uncompromising position on the truth of the whole gospel of Christ. And I think of a solid, compassionate leader who I like to assist.